are a very dynamic, very charismatic person, and I'm glad to see that you're a representative for one of our districts. Could you give us some insight into the discussions on Amendment 4, the restoration of rights for former convicts?
Yeah.
Because it didn't quite work out the way we thought it would.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you for that question. So the question was on Amendment 4. For folks probably remember Amendment 4, we supported overwhelmingly last election cycle, giving our returning citizens the right to vote. And the legislature passed what my colleagues called an implementing bill. I called it an interference bill to make this process more difficult. And what the legislature basically did was create a two-tier process for rights restoration based on income, because they're now requiring that all court fees and restitution be paid before you can have your rights restored, which really is a delay tactic that for some folks who have lots of restitution on their backs are never going to pay it off. And so let's dive deeper into this, right? And this was a major issue of debate on the House floor and was pushed through in the last minutes as well. Some of my colleagues will say, well, people can do community service to pay off that restitution court fees, but the reality is that that's nothing new. Folks always had community service as an option to reduce court fees and restitution, but if you are a working class Floridian, your ability to do community service to get that removed is nearly impossible. So again, it's just not realistic that someone can just work off the hours and already serve time for to get the right to vote. And we brought up these points on the House floor, and I'm happy to say that 4 lawsuits have been filed on Amendment 4 by groups like the ACLU, among others. And so we're waiting to see what a decision will be made. Unfortunately, there was some more politics that happened. Folks might remember the cases were assigned to a judge who's had a long history of making smart decisions based on the Constitution. And because the opposing side who wants to keep Amendment 4, they actually brought on a lawyer that works at the judge's wife's firm. Because they did that, the judge had to recuse himself. Yeah, so I mean, politics goes beyond legislature, right? It goes into the judicial branch too. And I will say that it's very scary right now. Any type of lawsuit is very scary because Governor Ron DeSantis has also appointed 3 new conservative justices in the Florida Supreme Court. So every issue that is being litigated right now, and whether it's this issue of right restoration, whether it's abortion issues or charter schools, because I mentioned that we created a 7th voucher program that takes money directly out of the FEFP, which is a fund just for traditional public schools. Now we took money out of that to go towards not just charter schools, but also private for-profit schools. When that gets litigated, it's going to have a whole new panel of judges. So at this point, with Amendment 4 in mind, I encourage folks to still get registered to vote. Like if you are a returning citizen, still get registered to vote. We don't know what the outcome of the law will be. And so if folks are hearing rumors of, well, you know, I can't do it right now because I have to pay out court fees, I would still have them register. Different state attorneys have already committed they're not going to prosecute anyone for registering to vote, even if they're not ready to do so. A new form is going to come out soon too that will have additional questions about this. And so there's just a lot of confusion of what is next because it's going to be going to the courts. But I'm encouraging folks to still get registered to vote. I think legal voters are doing the same. I know the Democratic Party under organizing core was encouraging returning citizens to still get registered to vote. So I wouldn't stop in that effort. Now, one last thought to this issue, because it speaks to the larger broken system of criminal justice we have in our state. And this is a point that I brought on the House floor too. I asked Chair Jamie Grant, who supported this bill, who sponsored this bill, I said, why we already know we have a broken criminal justice system. Republicans agree on that point too. Why are we sending individuals back to a broken system? And to some degree, their charges might have been so extreme with a petty crime in mind because our judicial system is so archaic. And as a state lawmaker, we can visit prisons unannounced across the state of Florida. We have over 60 prisons here in Florida. we have a population of 96,000 that are incarcerated or in the incarceration process. And I'm proud to say that we have visited 2 prisons already unannounced. I'm talking to the incarcerated, talking to their families, and getting a better grasp of the inmate abuse that takes place, of the high turnover with correctional officers, of the lack of control in our prisons, and just the inhumane environments, whether it's no air conditioning or a solitary confinement for excessive moments of time. And so we've been diving deep into this world as well and working with our colleagues at the Democratic Caucus to actually develop a proactive criminal justice package that eliminates mandatory minimums, that examines the trial tax. If there's any former criminal defense attorneys in the room, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, these systems are so broken. And Florida passed the First Step Act for our state, which was supposed to mimic some of the reform at the federal level. And unfortunately, ours was incredibly watered down by the time it got to the House. It really did not do anything when it comes to decarceration and re-examining our school to prison pipeline. And so very hopeful this next session we'll get some actual leadership on this, but it all ties back down to this notion of treating others as less than human. And I think Amendment 4, show that Floridians won't believe in second chances, and it's a shame the legislature abused it and took it in a different direction. But it's not the first time, and I don't think it will be the last either. I mean, we look at the conservation dollars. I think it was 2014, Amendment 1. It was for conservation dollars for land acquisition projects. Folks might remember it was like the only win in 2014 that we had. And so this created a new trust fund for land acquisition projects, and legislatures spent that money instead on maintenance of state park trucks and operational costs. And so there was a lawsuit that's still pending on that. And that was 5 years ago, and it's still being debated in courts. So to also remember that these lawsuits take a very long time, but I do believe firmly in the notion that when the legislature can't get the job done, citizens should circumvent it. And that's what we've been doing with ballot amendments, and whether it's the ban assault weapons amendment, Medicaid expansion, deregulation of utility companies, Fight for 15, all these issues are on your ballot. Even recreational cannabis is potentially gonna be on the ballot. And with every type of effort to do that, it's not just a reflection of what the voters want, it's also a reflection of what the legislature isn't doing and is afraid to do or not politically courageous enough to do, and or corporations don't want them to do it. And I think that's the big point here, is that many corporations don't want to have a $50 minimum wage. They refuse to do it. So it's easier for them to control legislators than to control a ballot amendment. And I say that because another bill that passed this session was a bill to make ballot amendments more difficult for citizens to do. And so not only did we interfere with Amendment 4, we then passed a bill to make that entire process more challenging and more difficult, which reminded me of the 2011 legislation around voter suppression. When we do voter registration, you know how we have to have a third-party number on the form, we have to timestamp the form. That wasn't always Florida law. That was put into place in 2011 in an effort to hurt voter registration before 2012. That was totally it. And when that law first passed, we had to turn in voter registration forms within 48 hours. They've expanded it to 10 days, but it was 48 hours. It was a moment when I was in college. We're at UCF. The supervisor elections was 30 minutes away from us. I mean, we'd have to drive downtown every day to just drop off forms for students. It was such a suppressive tactic. And so, unfortunately, those tactics, they just get reinvented, and it's not going to change unless we win more seats. That's the bottom line. And also keep in mind that redistricting is coming soon. So everyone should do the census, right? Everyone should do the census, and then everyone should hold politicians accountable going into 2021, where we're going to draw maps. And the structure in Florida is that the legislature draws their own maps, which is a ridiculous idea. And there has been legislation in the past to remove it from lawmakers and place it with a different third-party commission. But at this point, that's not the reality. So not only is winning seats so important in 2020 because we need to try to flip this state and not give it to Trump, but those lawmakers that you elect in 2020 will potentially be drawing the maps for 2022. So it becomes even more important that we fight for these local seats, for state senate seats, and for state house seats, and do our best to try to have more parity in the legislative chambers. So when these other issues come up, we can actually not just play defense, but play a little offense too. So that's a long answer to the question.
Thank you.